when you say like, okay, Ohio can become the hub for 3D printed construction, it literally can become the hub for 3D printed construction. There is awesome. The playing field is completely level. And so what Ohio State can do for us, Ohio State can help provide those solutions. When you ask where we want to scale, like we want no obstacle to be able to provide this to someone in Des Moines, Iowa, Spokane, Washington, Atlanta, Georgia. You can go down the list. Like if they have a need for housing and this is a potential solution, we want to help be able to bridge that gap. So again, we operate with the urgency and also, carefully knowing that this potentially could have a huge impact.
Make yourself at home, do your do. Welcome to my pad, this your lab. Go create your move.
This episode is brought to you by Subway. What's good, everybody? It's 99 Miles Per Hour Podcast with me, your host, Percy Garner. And we went outside Tuscarawas County for this guest. I'm excited. But before we get on our guest, I would love to say thank you to Subway and the Fitzgerald family for making sure this podcast hits the airwaves and is uploaded to YouTube. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this, sort of. Also, I want to say thank you, Josh, for everything you do, man. It means a lot. But also, there's merch. There is merch. Go help a Dover student. This is how I do the scholarship for one Dover student a year. Unless you guys kill it, then I might be doing multiples. And then also my pitching lessons on Discord. I'll be sharing that link below in the description. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're still trying to get our goal of 1,000 subscribers. So help us out. Get there. Let us monetize the channel. If you really like our content, you'll do that for us. So thank you. Also leave a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But without further ado, wait, did I say subscribe? Okay, yeah, subscribe. Oh. Without further ado, we get to our guest. So today's guest, who is someone that I'm intrigued. I just can't wait to get to the show because of what we're going to be talking about. It's exciting because it's new things. You guys are not going to be ready for what you're not going to guess. I'll just say it. We're going to talk about 3D printing houses. So I have a lot to ask our guest today, but our guest is the CEO of multiple companies and is also someone who cares about their community in Youngstown and drove all the way here to be on the show. So I appreciate that. But we have Ryan Kelly with us. Appreciate you coming. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I appreciate you guys having us on, and it's we're excited to have a conversation about 3D printed housing.
I bet. I've done some research, but I also got some questions from my son. But before we get into that, just kind of give us, other than saying, hey, Pantheon Innovative Builders, we 3D print houses, give us a brief synopsis of why this company started, because it's new, right?
Yeah, it's so we're kind of. The company's in its infancy. We're in the startup stage. So the company was born from, we wanted to have an impact in low-income neighborhoods, kind of change the whole dynamic of overall in low-income neighborhoods. And so when we looked at how can we, what do we find is the heart of it, and creating pride in neighborhoods, pride in the household, and it's the household, it's the actual home. So you look at, you want to create affordable housing. You want to do, you want to have that impact. Well, that's becoming extinct if you really look into the problem. So a couple of years ago, we started to look into that, and it kind of snowballed into where we are now, where you see, okay, one problem is the access to maybe funding. That could be, maybe these projects aren't funded. So it brought us to the next part of which is, okay, now there's materials are crazy. It's expensive to build a house. Then you get to, well, there's a shortage of 650,000 construction workers in the United States. Like, that's an actual stat that the American Contractors Association just put out. So You go down that list, and then you get into, okay, the NIMBY, the not in my backyard mentality, and trying to make sure that, people hear that there's a low income housing project or just some sort of development. We're not going to have it here. So what can you do that'll address all three of those things and not have the overall obstacle from creating, new opportunities, new development? It's this technology, and that's what brought us to this technology. And really, like I said, it was born in our three things that we want to really focus on, which is affordability, customization, being able to provide customized homes, and also sustainability. We want to build something that is going to have an impact physically that you could see, and then also create impact overall. So
yeah, and I think most people kind of overlook that. Everyone thinks, when you say the American dream, it's go to college, get a great job that's paying, and have kids. But the biggest part I think that gets overlooked is owning your own house. Yep. And I think, I know my parents, we never owned a house until I moved with my aunt and uncle, and they still own theirs. But that was like a thing, like, oh, wow, this, we're not renting. And there's nothing totally against renting. I know some people look at that, but I know that was one of the things I wanted to do with my family. I wanted to own a house and kind of go from there. So I like the fact that you're, bringing pride to, especially the areas where, pride isn't always, something that's there, because just how our society works, low income areas.
Well, it's also the quality of the homes in those areas.
True.
And again, so to add to your point, I think it's so common that people will say, it's not a political side thing. It's just, there's people that are getting government housing because they don't want to work. They're getting subsidies. But the reality is, when you have generations of families that have never owned a home, how can you expect some kid to grow up and say, I want to own my own home? Or if you're the home you're in, it's just, you don't even want to sleep there because the quality isn't great to it. Yeah. Then why, you don't value a home. And so it's something that, I took for granted. It's not that, I was born to a bunch of money. My dad was a police officer. My mom was a nurse, and so early on in that stage, I didn't want for a ton, I didn't want it, but again, you took simple things for granted. And, I grew up, born and raised, still in the city of Youngstown. My heart's there, and went to
Youngstown State, right?
Yeah, I went to Youngstown State. Yeah, I had I went to a high school that, again, although they're a high academic institution in one way, I think the diversity of that inner city high school was the biggest thing that came for me, the biggest impact. So I spent the night anywhere, literally all over the city of Youngstown. So I mean, it to me, there was areas my dad's like, wait, you're where? And so, but again, that's just how, that was the value of it. And so you got to see when kids would come over my house though, and now it's like, oh, you live in a mansion. And I look at it man, I want a bigger house one day, so you gain an appreciation. And so I think, again, this is what all led us to, where we're at now.
That's what's up. The point you made where, you'd have friends come over and they think you live in a mansion. That's how I was with, a lot of my friends. I would be like, wow, your house is humongous. Before I'm 14, I have no real estate experience and I don't know anything. I'm like, this house must be $1 million. Yep, and then it's just like a middle-class home that was $250,000.
No, and you know what? It's the simple parts of, and when you get into it, you start to peel back those layers and you're like, okay, it's also, you take for granted. I thought about it recently. My wife and I bought a home in 2017. Your wife, you guys own a home. When you went and looked at homes and you chose the one that you wanted, so you take pride in that. Yeah. Even though, yes, there's the government housing, people are given those homes. Yeah. How do you have pride in something? Just hand it to you in those things. True. And it's not in the negative connotation that people talk about. It's just that you want to have some. So again, it's just all that, it all ties together, and that's where the customization part comes in. So it's we're trying to change the dynamic in neighborhoods and overall. And we think a solid home that people have pride in are at the heart of that.
Yeah. I mean, from the picture you sent me, I'm just like, dang. This home looks like, it doesn't, you wouldn't think that, this house is something that you can make from a printer per se. So, but before we dive into how all that works and the timeline of, how long it would take, cause my son was grilling me in the car. He's like, Dad, well, how big is the printer? How long does it take? All this stuff. So I'm like, well, I want to kind of learn, obviously you shared a lot of where the inspiration for this comes, but I kind of want to learn a little bit about you and kind of your journey to here and what you've done and where you've been and, how you ended up here. Cause I know, you said you ran for mayor before and, obviously you're, CEO, president of multiple companies. So kind of just, I guess, talking about you wanting the bigger house and kind of being ambitious in what you wanted to do, coming out of Ursuline High School, right?
Yep.
And going to Youngstown State. What did you major in Youngstown State? Business administration with a master? Okay. So yeah, I did a little bit of studying.
Yeah.
A little bit, but like just for you, obviously you were tied to sports as well. Like, how'd that, I guess, come about? Obviously Youngstown, sports heavy area. So what was your sport?
Football. I was a football player.
Okay. So, nice.
It was so again, I kind of gave you the background a little bit of my family, but so getting into business, I got into business. Actually, we bought our first business. It was a restaurant. It was a pizza, like kind of carry out pizza shop. And so I graduated high school in May of 2008 and bought our first business in August of 2008.
Wow.
So used a little bit of my graduation money and a little bit of a work money I saved up, and my partner and I put a little down payment on it. And 14 years later, we're into 14 years later, we're still going. So
dang. I bought a MacBook Pro with my graduation money.
It probably was more valuable than the pizza shop we bought initially, because those things, you don't buy something that's actually like worth anything with graduation money. In reality, it was like, there's a reason why it was being sold for that, that low amount. So, there was, but again, like we learn lessons along the way. So it's like sometimes now I'd much rather have a bunch of money in the time, but as you get older, you understand that the process is just, and if not even more important than the profit that comes with it.
Yeah.
You'd love the profit, but you can't, every little bit of the experience along the way has kind of built the foundation for, I think, what we're ready to do here. And so I'm also, I still coach high school football.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, I'm a player's guy. I love kids. I love to have the impact on kids. You love to be able to, there's that magic window of what ages you can actually have an impact on a kid. And I feel like you want to get it before that 18 and 24, when kids are really kind of, they might lose their way. You're trying to find, so, I still love that,
And what age group do you coach?
High school.
Oh, okay.
High school. Yeah. I coach at Ursuline still. So
okay. And you're defense?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm a defensive coordinator there. I probably don't have as much time, but as I should, as for everything else, not Ursuline football. Of course, I'm a high school football coach.
Yeah.
Just basically one step away from.
I show up on Friday nights.
Yeah. At that point. So, honestly, it's just it's the kids that keep coming back, and my heart, I always say, is in the inner city, and I mean that because, again, that's where my best friends grew up, and that's where the kids that I feel like obviously have a lot of times the most need, and but it's more of the most need. They appreciate those little things and that impact, and so again, it's that whole piece and that diversity piece. It's impacted me. It's impacted my family. I can already see that impact. So again, I think. My partner, one of my partners, Bryant, and we have a very, I am the CEO, but we have, there's co-founders, there's equity that way. And we have a diverse team that actually is one of those things, like, we put together a team that, and not to jump around, I guess, too much, but we put together a team, like the people that are on this team are people that stopped me in my tracks, impact on my life. And then they stood out, to me in some way. The co-founder originally started with Pete Wersch. He went to Ursuline. He was a couple years young. He was actually a couple years younger than me. He's a custom builder. He came to me initially when I was looking at 3D printing and was like, I want to be a custom builder. I see all these challenges that are facing this, it's going to be a real challenge to try to build with this workforce, all these different things. He's like, so, I know you've been in business. Do you want to come and, try to potentially be in it. I'm like, well, yeah. What do you think about this 3D printing thing here? So, this is a couple years ago. So we started moving that way. And, so that, the next person we brought in almost immediately was Bryant Youngblood. He's an educator. He went to, VMI, Virginia Military Institute, and he was 2 years older than me in school. He was a captain on the football team when I was in high school. And again, he just was a dynamic guy, and so being, when I was kind of with him through this whole process, it was, he's a director of a charter school. And so they've won some awards locally, Academy for Urban Scholars. His whole mentality, he's done some innovative things and innovative approaches to people. Everybody wants to say, well, parents don't help. These parents are failing these kids. They don't take part in it. Well, so his thing that he's done there is, okay, if you want parents to help with their, let's get parents doing homework. So they offered the same programs they offer to kids, the GEDs, they offer to the parents as well. So it's the same accreditation. So it's worked, and it's really, so it's one of those things. And the crazy part is I didn't have to go and say hey, here's this idea and then sell. They instantly knew exactly where I was going with it, and so that's where you knew. Another partner, Keelan Logan, he owned a green infrastructure construction company, and he's one of the smartest people I know. And again, he just got a guy that stopped me in my tracks. So I guess the process got slowed a little bit with over the last couple of years. We started this about 2.5, 3 years ago. Okay. It slowed a little bit. I did run for mayor, as you mentioned. It was just, I have a trouble looking at something that I feel like there's a need we're missing, or you feel like if I feel like I have some solutions, it's not a micromanager, but I feel like I need this. I live here. It's I do it in my business now, but I live here. This is where. So I felt like we were missing. We were failing kids. We were failing kids in the area. I also, again, if I want to raise my family here, I want to have some sort of say and how the impact of that. So, and overall, I know that Youngstown is a big city that kind of has continued to shrink. As everyone that knows anything about Youngstown with the steel industries losing and all those things. So I believe I saw an absolute place, and I still do, that for business and government meshing. It just, I can't, in business, you don't have an option to say, you hit a roadblock and, sorry, we can't, we tried. And it's you have to find a solution. Yeah. You have to continue. And so, I believe there was a place for that in government. And at minimum, I think, again, I wasn't successful. I finished second in the election, but it was honestly, it was an awesome experience because every part of it, again, same part of the process, you saw, understood funding a little bit more, the little components that I was missing. You saw that, you got to go door to door in the city of Youngstown. You don't realize how big a city is until you start to go door to door. And again, you think everybody in your city, your town, and but there's 62,000 people in the city. So it's obviously. Again, I only have 59,000 contacts in my phone, I think. So it's but again, it was all kind of led into that. But the moment the election, I took 3 days after the election was over. The first day was, of course, sulking for half a second, but not sulking. My version of sulking is what could I have done different? Yeah. One of those things, kind of doing that strategy point. The next kind of day was all right, let's get to work. Where are we going? And the third day, I actually was on a plane going to Iowa. I booked it. And, that was my version of sulking, eating ice cream. And sad was I need to go see all this stuff. All these different pieces. I need to see it in person. And so, flew to Iowa, looked at the way they were doing broadband and some of their in a city outside Des Moines, and I looked at it. I actually, after losing, people kind of are crazy. I think they're surprised that I'm like this, which is insane to me. Oh man, I'm so happy you're still you still care about the city of Youngstown. I'm that was a commitment that first of all, I think it's insane to even say that out loud. Isn't that why you right? And the second part,
I live here.
Yeah, the second part is so that's probably the biggest piece. I still live here, yes, and I'm not looking up. There's not a for sale sign in my yard. I'm not leaving. But I mean, honestly, it kind of I found new problems that I was like, it wasn't even the ones when you go and you see and you talk to the people in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's just, a neighborhood may not be another state away, but the problems in a neighborhood can be, it's completely different to every side of town, every part. So again, things that I didn't even realize, again, so it was like, okay, we really got to get to work and we really got to see this. So it reinvigorated me to really focus on this, fully, even though it was, trying to run your businesses, also run for mayor, also try to, have part in this company. So I believe it slowed this development, this company, it kind of slowed it for a second, but again, it also, in the same sense, it was a great experience. It was an experience that kind of benefited it, I think, so.
That's what's up. I mean, I think obviously your story is interesting, and obviously I relate to it a little bit. You're coming back home and you want to be, and you want to better it. I didn't think when I was growing up playing sports, trying to get a scholarship, I didn't think that, hey, I want to be really involved in my community. I just was thinking about, okay, I have to make sure college is paid for, and I want to be a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point, it kind of just, seeing people do different things, it just made me like, ooh. And then now I'm back here and obviously working for Rainbow Connection. I'm, giving back to the community, and it feels great. But I kind of want to dig in, I'm a nerd and I love technology. So I want to kind of dig in a little bit about the technology used. And obviously I said my son had some questions. So I'm used to a 3D printer that's about this big, and it makes little plastic parts and stuff and figurines. I'm assuming one that
it's a little bit bigger than that. Yeah.
A little bigger.
Yeah, a little bit bigger than that.
And how long would it take? Do you know? So like if you're like, you own the land.
So let's say, you were going to print a 1,100 square foot home. Okay. You're looking at probably, well, first off, I'll say this printer can do, right now the printers can do about 55% of the house. And I say that because you're mainly doing your basic. It's not replacing jobs. You're still having your same. You're still having
I was going to ask that next.
Yeah. So I guess so it's doing your basic framing, your framing work. Doing foundation, your framing work. You're that 55%. The other 45% is still done using traditional building methods, but you could also do the whole structure if permitting the style you're doing, the type of house you're doing, the type of roof, and any of those parts. So if you want to do 1,100, a full house printed with this thing, you're looking at about 36 hours.
That is not what I thought you would say. And I think most people like me, before we start talking, I feel like, oh, you're 3D printing housing. So you probably just print it. And all the parts, you say you want a slate roof, it just prints that and then makes the windows and everything. But obviously it doesn't work like that as well. So, because that picture you sent me, I'm like just picturing a printer just printing it out perfectly, how everything is done, concrete and everything, driveway, obviously landscape, but that's not
honestly,
real.
That's where, you look at it. So first of all, like our name Pantheon, it all came from, the Pantheon is the oldest concrete structure in the world. So like we're really, it's getting back to if you think of any neighborhood that's maybe run down what are the buildings that are still standing? The ones that are built with brick, concrete, mortar, all this, they're built to last, so we got away from that a little bit, probably, historically likely because it was the cheaper way to do it. And so, again, what I'm excited about this technology, just to get off subject, it's just the way I'm going to jump around a little bit. Like having to really look at this technology is actually going to, I believe the real impact is going to be on the quality of housing, because traditionally we've looked at, when we're looking at technology, and it's going to be different building methods and engineering aspect of it, we're looking at commercial structures. We skip residential housing.
True.
So now, we're looking at the integrity, like we're going over it with the fine-tooth comb, to make sure that it meets all these standards that we haven't really been holding, the existing structures to. So again, I think there's a big positive to it, that way. But, where my first thought was exactly where you were in it. I wasn't completely in some people think it's science fiction still. They don't believe
I was telling them, I was like, I got this guy coming on my show and he's doing this.
And the other thing that's common is, you think that they picture it being printed somewhere, like a modular type building piece. You're going to print the printed wall, bring it there, print a wall, bring it there. Like this is actually, it's on site. It's printing the house on site.
Oh, wow.
It's on a gantry system. So it's moving, and some of the other printers that are in the market are on rails, so the idea with that would just be going right down that row, which this being on a gantry system, you can make the axis can go as far as you want. So it's going to be a lot. You could print 6 row homes if you wanted to with this technology. Wow. So but it's also it's in its infancy.
Yeah.
So, there is some, we wanted to be like, I wanted this to scale. I wanted this to see where from, not from a business component, from a solutions component, like, what is the best use for this? What other people? So that led us really to understanding, what the company that we're buying the printer from, Cobod. Okay. So Cobod was the last company we met with, and we kept hitting some roadblocks along the way, which was these companies weren't selling to people. And so Cobod was the last one, and they're actually the leader worldwide in the production of 3D printed construction printers.
Oh, okay.
So it just, again, it kind of by happenstance, they were the ones, and they were awesome. So they're currently headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark, but they're building headquarters in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's somewhere in Florida. Actually.
Okay.
I don't even know. I can't even. I probably wasn't even supposed to speak on that at that point. Who knows?
We'll edit that out.
I think it's coming at that point. But anyway, so they're making a commitment in North America as well. And so, but what was attractive about them wasn't that the leader. That was kind of like the last thing we found as we're doing this research on it about 2 years ago. It was really, okay, they're in 7 different continents. Like they have some customer all over the world. Wow. They have multiple countries. They had material and design freedom. So you could use whatever was going to work in your area. You can use your suppliers. They gave you kind of a concrete mixture and the different barometers and the different materials that they recommend, but you had your own freedom to do those things. So, but the reason that it was so attractive for those things was that I didn't want something that was just going to be done in Southwest Texas, Mexico. Like we're not building these outdoor, kind of things that look like they're only in the desert. In the way that, and not even from an aesthetic, purpose, but actually like, is it gonna, like we have it today, it could be 60, tomorrow it could be 6. We need to make sure that these are going to be able, we want to build something to last, because we were seeking that solution no matter what. So was this the piece, or we're going to keep moving, so again, that's where, brought this technology. So as you started to see, I think if you ask Cobot too, a couple of the obstacles that this technology from really taking off, that it's happened. I mean, it is in the infancy stage. It's kind of, they've built homes in Europe and in Asia. Dubai is actually committed to having 100% of their homes 3D printed by 2030. Dang. So I mean, what you start to really learn when you start to do some research is that we are so behind from the United States from an innovation standpoint, from a technology standpoint, and whether that be as a result of just political posturing and self-interest, the things that we're experiencing, once they get here, we make it that much better. We accelerate it, but it's like, man, why does it take 10 years to get to some point? I brought up broadband earlier as an example. Like the 2 Olympics ago, South Korea's entire country had fiber optic broadband, and now we're like, there's places in Ohio that don't have internet. Period. And it's like, what are we doing? And so. Again, that's kind of where, if you ask, like, what we are, we're civic entrepreneurs. We're trying to, promote social change, but we're also doing it, for profit. To be honest, and again, that's something that election taught me as well. I guess that to add that piece, it's just that, if you want to have impactful change, you need to be an elected official. You need to have some money. Yeah. So you can't be a broke pizza guy. You got to, you got to do some, you got to kind of. And so this not to say, okay, this is my get rich opportunity. This is, man, we could make money and it's where money and mission kind of meet, I would say.
Yep.
But it's also along the way, as we grow this, it's so new that you're essentially being the really kind of the pioneers to what to change in an industry. And I think that's, again, I mean, it's exciting.
And I like
really
that you're
exciting.
bringing it to Ohio. And
Yeah,
we're not out in like California or something.
And so, in that part, you hear Tim Ryan, who's the United States rep in our district. You hear Joe Biden just said it in the recently in the State of the Union, and prior to that, the previous 12 State of the Unions, 2 different presidents, Youngstown was mentioned 3 times as the hub for additive manufacturing and 3D printing. So if you want to be the hub, this is a commitment you have to make. You need to, we have America Makes in our city that people, again, if you ask the 62,000+ people going door to door, I would say probably 100 of them know that that the first 3D printed additive manufacturing incubator in the world is in Youngstown, Ohio. It's literally, I mean, it's enormous. The impact it has worldwide is enormous, and we don't even realize it's downtown. It's like, and so again, I think
We're distracted.
we are, but it's, that's not just the people. Again, it's the people in elected officials. We need to use these things, and so the whole idea is that additive manufacturing and new innovative manufacturing and this technology is going to be the next steel mills that kind of caused part of our the rise of Youngstown and the fall of Youngstown all wrapped up in one. So,
well, kind of one of the things I kind of want to touch on is, obviously you have partners. You just talked about, was it Cobod?
Yeah, Cobod's the printer.
And then, obviously, the reason that you're even on my podcast is because of Nate Ames and Ohio State and the CDME. But obviously, investors, they need to be involved, and, so are you seeking, or how's that work? Like, cause I know you said you're in the infancy stage, you're in the startup phase. So, we are currently, seeking investors, private and public investment. Right now we've reached out recently, to Senator Sherrod Brown, Senator Rob Portman, Marcia Fudge, who's the director of HUD. She's from Cleveland. So it's like, we're trying to be able to leverage there's an insane amount of resources that are allocated right now to affordable housing. But what you learn is you can allocate $300 trillion to affordable housing. You can't do it cheap right now with the cost of material. Yeah.
I mean, lumber is literally up 130% over the last 2 years. So you're not gonna do it cheap. You're not gonna do it any faster because we don't have anybody to build it. So again, you have to, it's almost like you can't, inconsequential funding allocation is not gonna create impactful change. You have to make sure you have to invest in innovative technologies like this, and you have to invest in the research of it. And that's where, again, we want to make sure that that's where Ohio State came in. Ohio State, their Center for Design and Manufacturing, it's world renowned. It's the best in the country, and so it's more than just having Ohio State, putting it on a press release or having those things. Like maybe it starts like, okay, we got to get in with Ohio State. We got to get then you realize, and you meet a guy like Nate and Ben who works with Nate in the center, and you're like, man, these guys are dynamic. Again, I've used that word a couple of times, but it's like they stood out. I mean, and you had Nate on the show as well. He is an impressive guy.
He is.
And so, and we were impressed by Ben, who we originally talked to, that works in the thing, and then it's both of those guys together. And so we went out to Arizona actually about a month ago, and because we flew them down because we wanted them to see the technology kind of working, because Cobot has a customer in Arizona. We wanted to see the technology actually being employed, and then see the house that was already built, in Arizona. And once you see it, you're sold. Whether it's from a place of like, I'm not sure if this is real or is this photoshopped, or it's like, again, you just get to see it. And the coolest part is the house in Arizona was done in collaboration with Habitat for Humanity.
Oh,
so
okay.
We got to the homeowners themselves. They were actually, it was kind of crazy. We got there and we were like, oh my God, no one's here. Like, it was like we had a hard time getting a hold, and lo and behold, they just came walking out of the house like, oh, can I help you? And so we had a representative from Cobod there. They explained that they were part of the helping with this project. And so, but like, just to see it literally everything that we had just talked about for the last few months, and speaking with Ohio State, and also what we've talked about on the whole hour and a half car ride and jammed in this small little rental car there, it kind of was like, it was literally put on display where it was like the homeowners, part of their requirement to do it, they had to have 60 hours of service to even be eligible to try to purchase this home, but then you had to have part in building the home. So they had and so my whole goal going, and I say this all the time with my part, like, I want to be able to create that next generation of grandfathers who built their home, have that old school pride. Like, my grandpa built this house. I want to help create those grandfathers. So seeing the pride that guy, the husband and wife, took in their piece of this house was awesome. And then just literally seeing it was like, oh my God. So it's 88 in Scottsdale, Arizona, or excuse me, in Tempe, Arizona. We were down there, and you go in the house, the air conditioning's not on. It's 70 in the house. And it's like, wow, just the way it's built, structure. Yeah. One of the concerns that I always had was like the acoustics of it. Like, it's going to be, it's all concrete house, and so it was no issue with that. And just, it's a nice home. And so, like, again, those pieces were attractive to me when we looked at this technology, but kind of to pivot a little bit to the part of, like, again, Ohio State comes into where they can do, being able to create sustainable building material. Can we have, we're really big into circular construction methods. So, like, we're literally reusing some of the, so give you the example, in Youngstown, they're demoing 1,100 homes. Dilapidated homes, rundown homes. So they're going to rebuild. Can we use any of that in the rebuild process? Like, is there any of the waste? Like, so Ohio State has the ability, not only from a technology standpoint, but also, again, your materials you're using. So that was really cool. When, things you learn along the way. I mean, imagine, you could look in this room here, like the corners, how many corners, the way that the design building was, how much space is wasted on corners. So this technology can help eliminate corners in homes, like same structural integrity.
Yeah, I saw that on YouTube. But also be able to
the most possible usable space in a home. So again, and do that without increasing the cost at all. I mean, you could build this table, or you can build this chair, and it's going to, again, the costs are going to be, and just the angles of it, it's not going to change. It's not going to change the cost. Yeah. And so, because people are in this construction field, you're not replacing current workers, you're not taking current jobs, you're replacing 30 plus years of experience that people aren't getting. So now, how do you do that? Again, you do that with technology like this. So and this is allowed. So it's not only that, but it's allowing custom building to not become extinct either, and offer it to a demographic that's never got to experience a custom building. I can't afford a custom built house right now. So
I kind of got lucky. It was already being built, and it wasn't my customization, but we walked into a situation, and I'm just glad my wife is okay with this house, and we're gonna live there forever. But it's a whole different feeling when you're like, I kind of want this done, and then they're like, okay,
and so that's where, like, okay, that's where we want to take this technology. Like, we're not like all this money being allocated to affordable housing and some workforce housing, low income housing. We're trying to completely rebrand the low income housing model. We're also and rebrand and reimagine it. But it's also, we want to stop. We don't want the housing solutions to be the next generation's projects. We want to build custom housing. We want to change the image of it and change the image, change the energy, and change just the way we approach every part of the low income housing profile.
Okay, so before we get out of here, I want to do one last question.
Yes, sir.
And so obviously you're from Youngstown. I'm assuming it will start there. Is your plan long term to expand, or you want to just take care of Youngstown and then see what happens after that?
Yeah, we obviously want to start at home in Youngstown, but we really want to start in Ohio. We want Ohio to be the hub for this. I mean, so we're not pigeonholing ourselves there. Like, we want this we see now what this technology can do. We want to give any city the opportunity and try to grow this industry. Again, I mean, there's a bubble, and I can't emphasize it enough, that's getting ready to burst in this construction industry. I think people, it's such a close knit community that way, that you don't often know how drastically bad it is. And again, so I've seen it just in that short time that contractors, you might get some that when you initially talk to them, it's like, I don't want a robot taking my job, to, hey, you still doing that technology? Think you could? But it's honestly like, because when you start to realize that, like, it's not a need, it's just in Youngstown. It's not a need, it's in Dover, or, again, and, and just as a great example of it, I would say, when we were in Arizona, Ben that works for the Ohio State, he was talking about this for him as a passion project, because he was in Haiti. He goes and builds houses in Haiti. Well, in Haiti, there's no trees. And so they were having trouble finding building material. And this kind of led him to that. And so the representative from Cobalt was like, well, they should just 3D print. I wonder why they don't do that. And so that stuck with me, because, the reason is because we can't do it in Dewey in Youngstown, Dewey Street in Youngstown, or Erie Street. Like, we can't do it here, to let alone do it there.
Yeah.
But I think, again, now that it's here in the United States and it's catching, like, we have the resources, we have the knowledge base. You have places like Ohio State that can completely, like, so the overall impact of it, when you realize that it is way, way bigger than again, a pizza guy, an educator, I call him a bust out handyman all the time, but he's a custom builder. It's way bigger than any of us. And so that, again, we approach it with that. We approach it with that same urgency. And, as well, here's the other part too. I don't know how to be a builder. I don't know how to be a builder. I don't know how to be a contractor, but I know how to develop and build things. I know how to have an impact on kids in multiple different walks of life. And so how do we bring that to it? And really the cool part is, it's kind of crazy. I didn't really put this all together, but all these guys went to Ursuline too. And it was just like,
oh, wow.
But literally almost every member didn't go to school with each other. So I was kind of the common ground between a lot of these guys. But again, and I failed to mention another partner that come on is Joe Veneros. He was a state building inspector and home inspector, which,
awesome.
Obviously you can imagine that, there could be some challenges that way. And it's like, we're literally trying to think that far ahead. So if this is a potential solution to a crisis that we have within the housing in the United States, what's every little thing we can check off the box? So again, we'll come and build a 3D print your son something. We'll do a little display there. No. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say we really appreciate you having us on. And, if you could tell, I do have a lot of energy for this. And so, it's like, there's so much to talk about. You want to get out at one time, but it's educating is a big piece to it. It's letting people again know that it's not science fiction, as I said earlier, and irregardless, we have to seek alternative solutions, not alternative in the sake of something to replace or be a disruptor that way. It needs to be an addition to. Yeah. And I think again, like that's what, we literally put it in our letter to, we just sent out the other day, to the center. Like, we are a 4 solutions company. It's not, we're not in the middle. We're trying to create change. And there's some financial gain somewhere in there likely, but again, if you're not building quality, sustainable things that are going to last for into the next generation, then again, it's not something we want to be a part of in any way. So,
well, that's awesome, man. Ryan, I appreciate you driving all the way down here.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
And
thank you too as well, Josh.
This Josh don't do nothing. No, I'm just
I kind of learned that.
No, Josh makes this thing go. If Josh wasn't here, we just would have had this conversation and no one else would be able to see it.
You don't see an engine. You just see the outside of the car, man.
Exactly.
They don't get enough credit.
Yes, but this was a great experience. I'm glad I got to ask questions that
I appreciate that.
I was, looking forward to, and I can't wait to see, this become, I guess more well known and more just regular. Like, oh yeah, 3D printing house, yeah.
And so like,
instead of like 3D printing house,
like, what? We're the 4th private company in the United States to be into this. Okay? We're the 13th in the world. So when you say like, okay, Ohio can become the hub for 3D printed construction, it literally can become the hub for 3D printed construction. There is
awesome.
the playing field is completely level. And so what Ohio State can do for us, Ohio State can help provide those solutions. When you ask where we want to scale, like we want no obstacle to be able to provide this to someone in Des Moines, Iowa, Spokane, Washington, Atlanta, Georgia. You can go down the list. Like if they have a need for housing and this is a potential solution, we want to help be able to bridge that gap. So again, we operate with the urgency and also, carefully knowing that this potentially could have a huge impact, and knowing that people are naturally pessimistic in a lot of ways. Like you have to move very carefully because this is a startup and it's a startup industry. And so, it's challenging. It's exciting. I love challenges. Maybe that's another part of it too. But again, it's just, our country is in a point where it's only been one other time in its history. We're the United States post a pandemic, and it's a level playing field right now in a lot of ways. And the rules are still being written. And so, we're trying again to kind of change and have a say and a piece in some way and how we, the government as well as entrepreneurs provide housing in low income areas. So,
well, I think it's amazing. I'm going to put your contact information.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
In the description. If there's any people watching this episode that want to get involved, want to, invest, or, obviously want to talk to him before, you're not just going to throw money, but obviously you want to talk to him before, or some of his partners about what this is about. Maybe you have visions of your own. We'll make sure that's in the description. And we'll also, if you want to leave comments, I can throw them Ryan's way as well. So if you want to communicate and find out more that we weren't able to cover in this episode, we can make that happen. And obviously this is, like he said, there's this fourth company in the US that is doing this thing. So it's pretty big. This is obviously at the ground level. So if you want to get in early and you want to learn more about this, we'll make that happen. But again, thank you for coming down here.
I appreciate that.
Sorry we couldn't get Bryant, but he had a family emergency. So maybe we'll have you guys back sometime, a year later saying, hey, this is what's going on.
You're on the invite list to our first print. So no matter what, you'll
be there. Nice.
So,
I love it. I love it. I owe it all to Nate Ames. Thanks, Nate. But no, again, we appreciate everybody who listens, who tunes in, and, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, help us out, and also follow Pantheon Innovative Builders, man. I'm excited to see what the future holds. Without further ado, peace.
It feels like Casablanca. Shouting you my little mama. I got a crib by the water. Say me Casa su casa. It feels like Casablanca. Shouting you my little mama. She be on that Henny. I like that Corona.